Yo, shout out to Franky from One Piece for being one of those characters that, as far as we know, can't use this ability known as Haki that allows you to put energy or armor around your limbs to increase the punching power or strikes of your attacks and things like that, invisible armor type stuff. Shout out to Franky for not having this. But we still seen him face off against beings that apparently do have this ability known as Haki to put armor around their limbs and stuff. Franky, in his general Franky mode, his highest mode, after the time skip, was able to face a being that apparently has this armor or invisible armor around his body techniques or Haki. Franky seems to not care about all this and tosses him to the side this way. We see Franky kick him here in his general Franky state and use his blade against him here, cutting him. Either this being stupid for not using Haki to defend himself, or he is using Haki and Franky's just that strong, even without Haki, still can damage him badly like this. Either or. Either way, you gotta respect Franky. Hopefully this video gives you some respect. Oh boy. Thanks to Franky, the Straw Hat Pirates can sail the ocean in peace, because wouldn't it be stressful sailing these oceans if you didn't have somebody on your crew or somebody on the boat at all times that know how to build or fix repairs of the ship you're on? Similarly to how DC Comics has their tech-heavy character of the group, Cyborg, think of Franky from One Piece like this regarding the Straw Hat crew. He's the tech-savvy person of this group, one could say. Tech support. These poor people in this One Piece world. Franky's one of them people with a tragic backstory, low-key, really young in his life. Matter of fact, when he was a baby, he came from South Blue via Reverse Mountain, thrown away by his parents. Yo, this is jacked up. His parents apparently tossed him overboard because he was an unmanageable brat. Yo, poor One Piece characters. He started working for this business known as the Time Workers, making ships, because he has a talent. He can build. This is a little small idea of talent. Somebody noticed that this guy made a cannon out of rubbish. You know, so Franky was kind of always smart. He had talent. He defeated a Sea King by making something. So he's smart. As far as we know, before Franky became the Franky of the Straw Hats that we know of, he was a normal human for all we know of. This leads to my point of how in One Piece, being a normal human is incredible in One Piece because you can still do superhuman stuff even without being enhanced or anything. Franky kind of proves that in this example. On how he literally takes on the train. For a little while, of course. End up getting messed up from this, though, really badly injured. And that's where he pretty much became the cyborg Franky, because he said he had to do something about this useless body of his, being half man, half cyborg, enhancing himself. This happened off screen, but yeah, this pretty much proves he's pretty smart. I mean, you can kind of tell he's enhanced. I mean, look at his nose and look at his forearms. All this stuff is enhancements. But you see, here's the thing, like, this is, one could argue, one of his greatest inventions ever, but this isn't the first invention because beforehand, he had a lot of other different inventions, like different ships he's made over the times, like a lot of them at that. They even called them Battle Frankies, like number 9. That shows that's his 9th invention, one could say. This could give you some idea on why and how he was able to become a cyborg. This ship right here got wrecked, but in particular, this was considered one of his other inventions he's made, Battle Franky 8. Matter of fact, this was actually a crucial plot point. Some people was actually using his ships to battle and hurt people. Like, you can literally see Battle Franky 35, 14, 30, 27, 18, all his inventions, 23, 16. But his greatest invention is probably his body, which is the topic of this video. How strong is Franky? Cyborg body is, one could say, his ultimate invention. And even this, over time, in this same show's adventures, he's even improved his own body via time skip, because that was like a time frame, 2-year time skip. So yeah, he does get stronger via improving via prep time over as time goes by, improving his own cyborg body. Like, Vegapunk is supposed to be the super smart guy of the verse, and you know, Franky's researching his stuff to kind of help improve himself, decided to live there. So that's why his improvements were so crazy. This can give you an idea of why he made such astronomical progress, just like the other people on the Straw Hats make progress between those 2 years. On top of making his own body an actual literal cyborgish, he actually got himself, like it stated, Battle Franky 37. Yep, he actually got something higher called Battle Franky 38. This is not his body. This is actually a literal battle suit, battle armor. And you guys probably knew this was coming. He's the reason why the Straw Hats even have a new ship in the first place, the 1000 Sunny, so he can sail the ocean. Thanks to a cyborg body, he can do a versatile number of things. In this universe, usually people can do superhuman stuff because of a few things. They're super strong because they worked out hard, and then other beings eat these super fruits to get strong. Franky's neither. Like, look what he did to his arm. Yep. Shooting bullets at him is kind of like a waste of time. I mean, he made himself a cyborg. I mean, we're not even going to get on his time skip battle suit that's made for tanking stuff. Like, it withstood ridiculous stuff like human-sized cannons and crap, and he just swiped it away. The funny thing is that his power source is cola. Yeah, literal drinking cola. Ain't that funny? Yep. That's how all his functions work. One of his attacks that you're probably going to see me bring up a lot in this video is that he can blast with a whole bunch of concussive air. In regards to Franky's techniques and stuff, there's implications he can produce more raw energy from his blast than his punches. What do I mean by that? Like, okay, yeah, you see his fist right here, right? And then you know about his air cannons he can blast outwards, right? Like, you probably thinking they're similar in raw power. No, I would say his blasts are stronger than his actual punches, because in this occasion with these pacifista, he punched these pacifista with just like punches and stuff. It wasn't really doing anything when he was doing his Franky boxing crap. But when he does his coup d'event or coup de burst, he blasts them and it actually pushes them back. So that's why I say it's implied his blast power, his air burst blasts are actually more powerful than his actual punches, blunt punches. Don't sleep on his punches either though, but I would say it's definitely air cannons have the advantage. Thanks to his weird body and enhanced physiology, he can become a literal centaur, essentially giving him extra legs. He can do flame projection, blasting flame out of his mouth, make his arm into a shield, spit nails, guns in his fingers. He has like a little layer of protection glove skin type crap over his fist. And if he takes this off, just know you're about to get punched really hard to make his punches harder. He calls it strong hammer. One can argue he can literally do some sniping type stuff. Like look how his arm literally opens up, shooting cannons out. He doesn't have to open it all the way up. It can be like rapid fire, like, I mean, don't be surprised in this video if you see me bouncing back and forth. Just know whatever this other form can do right here, this one can do better. But after the 2 years, he did get some cool upgrades to his own body. Like, he has convenient flashlights in his nipples now. These big shoulders aren't here for show. He legit has rocket launchers in them now. He can make his knees into like tank rolling things so he can roll away like this. He can actually shoot out lasers, or one could say beams of light, like laser beams. It's literally because of the pacifista they fought in the past, he can now blast with these light beams. Yes, these pacifistas shoot out light beams. And Franky can shoot out light beams too. They are pretty much recreating Kizaru's laser. Kizaru, the being that's literally made out of actual light in One Piece. You know, this is the same being that can literally kick at the speed of light, and Franky can shoot these same beams at the same being that's a light being. And when it comes to his mech battle suit, all these little ships put together is what makes General Franky in the first place the Iron Pirate. And it's got its own gigantic blade. When it comes to understanding how strong Franky is just from raw strength and stuff like that, it doesn't take rocket science to understand this concept. Of whatever Franky can do in his human, non-enhanced cyborg self, we could assume that these can do better in raw muscle or strength. Same with this form even being higher. That's his latest invention. Wouldn't you agree that's a fair assumption? He's a techie type of person that's always improving his craft. Why wouldn't these be above each other? Right? With that being in mind, we can get a off-gate strength feat just from him without even being a cyborg. I think it's a fair assumption to assume he's an unnaturally strong human without any enhancements, guys. I guess he's strong because of manual labor or something. He's always building stuff. Is that how he's strong? You know, it's one of those mysteries. He trained off screen or something? I mean, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty in his normal mode when it comes to striking or fighting. As far as I'm concerned, this proves he can lift over 100 tons just from this alone. Ridiculous strength. Even though he failed, he tilted it upward, implying he resisted it for 2 seconds. So what the heck do you think these can do? You see what I mean? So considering what he did as a human, is it really shocking that he can slam ginormous elephants this large compared to his body? It's not really that shocking when you see what he did to that train without cyborg enhancements. Right here, he actually is a cyborg. Using his building skills, of course, he used these big old pillars as like little weapons or nunchucks to swing with it. All this heavy stuff he can swing around to give you more visuals of his strength. As far as I'm concerned, even during these earlier days, he can lift at least 60 plus tons and even up to 100 tons. This shouldn't even be a question just from lifting strength. When it comes to the ships, he can literally rip them apart with ease. So I already mentioned this, but yeah, knowing he can lift this kind of weight already just off gate, and we've seen him physically overpower super strong fighters in the world government of this universe. Like, I'm talking about superhuman beings that can kick off the air so hard they can actually fly. That's why doing this kind of stuff is impressive to these strong beings, strong fighters. They're not normal. So with all this strength Franky already has, you ever wondered how hard he can punch with all this strength? I mean, he was dressed up here. You couldn't tell this was him, but this was definitely him. Look how hard he hits Usopp. Not the strongest member of the Straw Hats, but yeah, he did major damage to him with a strike. Yeah. With less than 1% of his punch power, he should be able to easily punch through walls and stuff. I mean, look what he does to this roof with a hit. We've seen him punch giant fish. We've seen him punch the main character, Luffy. We've seen him hit with enough force to crack the wall right here. You can tell there's weight behind his swings. Every foe he hits, he can make more than one being fly in the air from this weight of his swings. And that's him without taking his gloves off. One of the easiest way to understand how strong Franky is this government organization known as CP9. They're a group of strong fighters that have extremely similar fighting styles. Like, I'm talking about like dang near identical, with some being stronger but they have literally the same techniques. Like, I'm talking about techniques like Iron Body, moves that allow you to move faster than the eye can see. Like, this whole organization has these type of techniques. This is like one of the only arcs where the One Piece characters actually gave out actual power levels. Like, power levels were a thing here. This is how you can get an idea of how hard Franky can hit. Because all these beings got their power levels ranked via their base states. They ended up getting devil fruits, but this is their base state. So Franky may not be, like during this time period, Franky may not be as strong as beings up here like Rob Lucci, because right here he punched Lucci. This is the strongest dude in the CP9. He couldn't make him flinch when he did his Iron Body Tekai technique. So it lets you know in the hierarchy, he's not necessarily up there with this being, but when it comes to lower ranks, like beings down here like Bluno, beings like this, and the girl is the weakest of the group, you can kind of get an idea of how hard he can hit based on him being stronger than her. I think we can all agree with that, because we've actually seen Franky fight this guy. Like, I'm talking about literally slugfesting this same guy, damaging him while he's using his technique Teikai. His durability cannot stand up to Franky's punches, and it shows his durability too. These guys can hit with similar force as they can take. Franky's punching these beings. Like, these two are having a full-blown battle. It's pretty evident that Franky's on this guy's level of strength. Not to mention lifting him up and tossing him around. Just a friendly reminder that the weakest of the crew, Khalifa, CP9 member, remember Franky's fighting this guy, she's weaker. Even though she's that weak, don't forget she can kick this hard and split this wall right down the middle, kicking power. Like, one could say she could level a building doing something like this. This was light work for her. And here we see Franky fighting a stronger member and using his concussive blast of air, blast the same being via blast power. Franky got a legit win on this powerful being, making a crater that large on this same being. While I do think his blasts are more potent, don't sleep on his hands, because they still can do crazy damage to these beings. Even if they try to do Teikai, they make their body harder. Lucci, the highest of the CP9, even congratulated him on defeating Fukuro, saying you are indeed superhuman level. And I already showed you what weaker CP9 people can do. You see what I mean? Stuff like this would already kind of imply he could cause destruction to smaller building size things just off gate. His blast power, coupe de vent kind of stuff would imply that too. But if you're still not convinced, remember higher tier CP9 power level beings like Bluno. Don't never forget what Bluno did to Luffy here. Like, he was actually making a joke out of Luffy for a little bit here, like until Luffy got strong, of course, strong and faster in the same arc. So don't forget how strong this guy is. Never forget that Luffy can literally push hundreds of thousands of tons, like pushing 2 buildings apart. Yeah, the main character can do that. Don't forget what Franky did to Bluno, overpowering him in raw strength. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to say Bluno's anywhere near Luffy during this time period, but the fact that he could take hits from Luffy during this time, who's stronger than the version that fought Crocodile in the earlier arc. Remember Luffy, this is the same Luffy that can punch so hard. The weight of his punches can actually punch Crocodile so hard that he can lift up the literal city block, the whole block, from his punches get devastated like this. Just to give you some perspective of these punches that Bluno has to withstand to some degree in this particular situation, just to give you a small idea of that. And Franky did this to Bluno. So yeah, Franky's a heavy hitter, guys. He can do this with his punches. What do you think his blasts feel like? Like, this wasn't a bloodlusted serious fight, but remember what Franky did to Luffy, the main character. So yeah, he's a heavyweight. Franky can hit with a lot of weight. All of this kind of stuff implies that Franky could definitely push apart or split these buildings apart, similar to how Luffy did here, you know, with his punches or just air cannons or blasts. It just makes sense at this point. He should be able to do this by default. Like, Franky's somewhere in the sweet spot, probably like a little bit above Bluno and above all of these down here, but definitely not up here with these guys. You see what I mean? Like, he's in a really sweet spot in the middle, because like in any situation where he has to compete against beings like this, like Kaku, he gets massively overpowered. So there's like a decent gap. And then we talk about Lucci, the one that's higher than him, it's just self-explanatory. Like, there's a ridiculous gap. So yeah, he's definitely in between them ranges somewhere in this sweet spot right here, somewhere in that range. I mean, we've seen him do this to a building or the wall, does all this to this bridge with concussive force. He can cause all this destruction with his concussive blast of air. Yeah, I'm pretty sure by now you believe he could blow away buildings with his coupe de vent. Chopper, when he was in his super monster form, he blasted him all the way out the building. It's crazy. They built this into the newest ship, but without this and the older ship, he was the coupe de burst to get away, to help propel the entire ship far away from the fleet of ships that was trying to arrest him. He blasted this whole ship this far. They talk about the pirate ship jump. If he can launch something like this far, he can blast a ship 10,000 meters into the sky. To put this in visual perspective, he launched this huge ship 91 lengths of football field. You know, one football field, I'm talking about 91. He launched this ship 91 football fields away with a single blast. What the heck do you think all this pressure would do to whole city block. He would more than likely blow all this away if he can launch something that many football fields away in an instant with just raw pressure from his cannon. I'm not even really trying to go over the time skip feats for him yet, but like this what his blast does to an actual building. So yeah, he could have did this before this time skip though, but just wanting to give you a visual of that. These pacifista, which was given the entire crew issues, we see him launch. Look how he slings. This one, yeah, that's a lot of pressure behind those blasts. I brought this up earlier, but I'll bring this concept back up again. You can kind of get an idea of how strong he is based on his previous inventions. Like, for example, like his body was one of his newer inventions, but let's look at some of his previous stuff. If his previous stuff can produce this much energy, one can make a good argument that his actual cyborg body is stronger than what his previous ships could make in the past. And all his ships seems to have like actual weapons on them to shoot and stuff. They were even using his ships to like harm innocent people and stuff. So, you know, like Franky number 35, one of his other inventions was able to do this to a ginormous Sea King, a 300-foot long Sea King that looked like it weighed at least hundreds or even close to thousands of tons. One could say his blast could do this too with his newer cyborg body if his older inventions or older Franky models can do this, you know. Yeah, his punches can definitely take down this stuff. If his older inventions can do that, I would think that's a good estimation. His newer stuff can do better than this with punches or blast. His blast being worse, you know, he could take these things down. Sea Kings. Franky, along with Chopper, on one of their many adventures, fought this super being known as Oars, who was super large, and they can stagger or hurt this being with punches. They let you know these are the type of beings they can hit and do work to, even despite their massive size. This being is dubbed the quote-unquote the continent puller. Franky and Straw Hats punching a being like this would suggest that they're way more powerful than just having the punching power enough to level your whole block. Like, I'm about 100% sure that Franky probably could beat Pale in a fight. There's this being that was a fighter that's pretty strong, and he's more durable than people even realize. Like, in this form he's in right here, for example, there was like this ridiculously insane bomb. This being name was Pale. It was going to wipe out the whole city, and he survived this explosion. They was even talking about the kingdom is doomed. It will destroy the whole city. And you're probably wondering why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up for a reason, just to give you an idea of the lower tiers in the One Piece world, the stuff they can survive. Gigantic explosions this wide that was hitting stuff even though it wasn't necessarily near it, and it was affecting. The shockwave was this crazy. The guy literally saved the kingdom. I mean, here's the thing, everybody. I mean, don't get me wrong. Pale is strong and he's Alabaster's mightiest warrior, but I don't think he's stronger than CP9 members, guys. Especially the ones Franky had to deal with. This can kind of give you an idea of just the base ballpark of what the Straw Hats got to deal with. I mean, I know Nico Robin's strong, but he got defeated by Nico Robin. And I'll let you guys debate in the comment section. Do y'all think Robin during this time period was stronger than Franky? You see what I mean? Like, I do believe if he can survive, he was hurt though, but if he can survive nuclear-like stuff, I definitely think Franky and CP9 people probably can do better by a lot. It would kind of imply that Franky can hit with the force similar to nuclear weaponry. It would kind of just add up at this point. You know, what do you think though? I mean, Franky's enhanced in every way. So yeah, when it comes to durability, we've seen him withstand crazy stuff too. Like, it even had like a mushroom cloud type of thing. It looks like it was bigger than certain mountains. Like, he was in the middle of all that. Apparently he survived that. A catastrophic incident. This gives you an idea of what he can withstand. He was injured, but he was okay. So it kind of adds up, like these beings being able to withstand ridiculous explosions. And when it comes to CP9 agents like Rob Lucci, I'm not saying he's on his level because obviously he got messed up here, but I just think it's impressive he's got hit by this guy multiple times and can get back up, considering the gap in strength. And like right here, he definitely should have died, but he didn't. So I gotta give him respect, even though he got overpowered. Franky even admitted he's incomparably strong compared to the other ones. And of course, everything I've already mentioned, he can do better after the time skip. Like lifting a ton of weight or even buildings lifting for him shouldn't be no problem after the time skip. One could say in his highest mode, one could say the General Franky mode, his latest invention, his best invention, we've seen him like take on beings that are super large, beings that are bull rushing him, yet he still can slam. There's something nice about seeing big bodied beings suplex beings. Franky seems to like doing this, whether he's his base form or his General Franky mode, suplexing large beings. If he can do this stuff pre-time skip, you know, stronger than ever in his new body, new enhanced body, he shouldn't have no problem punching apart mountains. He's gotten astronomically stronger. When we look at the concept of the radical beam, since I mentioned earlier about how it's literally the same thing from the pacifista that gets its energy similar to Kizaru, it's mimicking Kizaru, a being that's literally a light being. One could say he can technically attack at the speed of light via these beams. He can blast you at the speed of light because these beams are light speed. Like, he quite literally has light speed attacks. Franky can blast you with energy, but yeah, he can actually fight pretty fast when it comes to his fist. Like, he's punching right here so fast that it looks like it's a whole bunch of fists. No, he's just punching really fast. because of boxing. So he literally has combat speed. The size doesn't seem to slow him down when you can punch somebody like this. I'm just saying. When Luffy was defenseless, this kind of shows Franky's speed. He was about to get stabbed. I'm pretty sure this elder was probably trying to stab as fast as. Franky was fast enough to push Luffy out the way in time, so it lets you know he's not freaking slow. You see this gigantic kraken that's even bigger than the ship. Like, this thing is definitely bigger than a couple blocks or build a small building or two. His attacks can hurt this thing. Like, his fire blast can do all of this to ships. It catch fire with his fire breath. His blasts make huge explosions like this, melting holes in steel. Stuff you would expect. It's consistent, just like the previous stuff I've already mentioned in this vid. Big hole. Like, Franky's a part of the Straw Hat crew, of course, but these three are considered the three strongest of the crew. A good way to really get an understanding of Franky's power is how does he stack up against them? Like, Sanji's one of the heavier hitters of the crew, right? I'm sure Sanji probably wasn't trying his absolute hardest to break out, but they was like in this little place and he was trying to kick through this door. And when Franky pulls up, when they was trapped, Franky simply does a radical beam and blasts through the door that Sanji kicked and it didn't budge. That door that Franky blasted through when Sanji kicked and didn't move, it stated that the door should absorb all forms of physical attack, and they obliterated it because of Franky's blast. So it's easily one of those feats that people probably overlook and don't even notice when it comes to Franky's blast power. Not to mention that's a door that he blasted through that apparently absorbs all shocks. Think of this like his base form, like his new base form after the time skip, and then he has like his Super Saiyan form where he literally goes on his Iron Giant mode, pilots a giant robot, General Franky, his newest invention after the time skip. When he pulls this out, one could argue this is like his transformation. This is his highest mode, one could say. Everything he can do before, he can do better like this. His punches or blasts probably can sink your old favorite islands like this. We've seen him punch these fishmen, for example. You see Franky in this battle suit, you know crap's getting real. I mean, he can do the same stuff. General Shield, throw it like on some Captain America type stuff. Have you ever wondered what would happen if Franky did his Couped Event or Couped Burst Super Blast Air Cannon attack in this General Franky state? Well, look no further. He can literally like basically one shot. I told you like earlier his blasts are better than his punches. When he brings this out, yeah, he can pretty much one-shot two Doflamingo family members with this General Cannon. So yeah, these blasts are probably the worst they've ever. These are probably the most powerful they've ever been. I'm talking about making both of these beings sleep time. This is probably Franky's most impressive feat of all time because there's this being that he had to fight, has the unique technique that a lot of top tiers have, this thing known as Haki, this power, that allows beings to use their energy and put armor around their fists to increase their striking power, increase their defense, invisible armor to make their offense or defense better. Like, these beings have these type of techniques. Franky, for all we know, doesn't use these techniques, but Franky, as far as we can see, seems to not need it as this being that apparently has these abilities charging at Franky. Franky's still able to counter and sling this big beast, kick this same being. Like, Franky literally doesn't need Haki to put in work. And Franky uses his sword to cut this being. And you can literally see the blood. So there's only a few things you can think of it. This guy's using Haki, Franky still can hurt him real bad. Or this guy's just stupid and not using Haki. Either or, Franky doesn't use Haki and he's still damaging a being that has the ability to use Haki. This is insanity. Imagine if General Franky or Franky in general actually used this technique with the General Franky, guys. I bet you a lot of people that watched that fight probably didn't even notice how strong that guy was, and Franky's just boxing him out like it's no big deal. Battled this same being quite a bit, guys. Even off screen, even if they don't show the whole thing, he was battling him. This was an extended fight, guys. Look what Franky did to this guy's chest. This is actually crazy. Franky even gets complimented to let you know how strong he is. You telling me this guy's doing all these attacks, he's not using Haki on Franky? This the guy's either ridiculously stupid or Franky's just that freaking durable. Fight still. I mean, since so many characters can use Haki, it's not like Oda, the writer of One Piece, is going to tell us every single time a character uses Haki, but is that guy using Haki here the reason why Franky's sword broke? Regardless of it, Franky still was able to blast this guy and do massive damage to him, blast him away. Look how much damage he did to this guy. Yo, he just blasted the mess out of him. Friendly reminder, this guy has a bounty of close to 500 million. Yeah, Franky's kind of a lot stronger than you thought, right? Being somebody that literally can use Haki. He may not be a Yonko tier nothing, but he's definitely a force to be reckoned with within the Straw Hats. You remember how early in the video I showed Franky before the time skip have to fight this giant being Oars? What if I told you after the time skip they fought beings this size again, but instead of them needing to use teamwork to take these beings on, Franky's gotten so strong to where he can kind of do this by himself with a single blast despite the size of these beings. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, these beings are huge. Yeah, and Franky blasted them. And one more quick comparison to one of the big three of the crew, Sanji. Okay, so there's these advanced things known as these pacifista. What if I told you they have better versions? known as Seraphim, and they have like combined powers of different races and some of the best fighters in the world and stuff. Like they get kind of scary strong. I'm bringing this up because notice how one of them looks like Jinbei, Bo Hancock, Doflamingo, Mihawk's Eyes, Kuma, King, Crocodile. You see how they all look like similar people from the past? They got some of their skills and strengths and stuff. Just to show you how strong we're talking, this being can take a kick from Sanji and recover. The Jinbei Seraphim, notice how they can't just one-shot these beings. Like this being is tough. Notice how when Franky was about to blast with his Franky Radical, notice how it was imperative to dodge. Let you know that Franky's not a lightweight. Don't sleep on him. Look what Franky's beam does to one of the highest authority of the government. I mean, here's the thing. When it comes to the government and the different tiers in the hierarchy and the ranks in the government, you know, there's different beings in the hierarchy. Like, for example, Admiral's pretty high, but there's actually beings even higher ranked than these beings in a higher branch of the government. Higher than Admiral level, like on this page, known as the Elders. They're extremely top tier beings, probably the highest of the food chain of this universe. These beings have their own set of abilities and such like that. I'm not trying to say Franky's necessarily equal with these beings, but Franky's blast, giving him some discomfort is pretty cool to notice, considering he's not even a hockey user and such like that. Franky, like, we don't even really need to get deep into what some of the top tiers can do. Like lower tiers, like, let me give you an example of the blast power, like Enel. He's not even considered a top tier, and he can produce catastrophic explosions with his Devil Fruit blast power to make an explosion on the moon that can be seen from Earth. Pretty much proving that explosion is way larger than even countries and such. If you can see the explosion from this far away, this is an example of a lower tier in One Piece when it comes to blast power. There's top tiers in One Piece that have Devil Fruits, like Whitebeard, for example, that have statements that say he can destroy the very world, apparently. You know, I'm not saying Franky's necessarily up there with the top tiers, but this is something that should be consideration when you see Franky blast these elders of the government. This kind of stuff would kind of imply Franky would have to be able to hit hard enough to tremble the entirety of countries or more than one country, even continents, if you want to look at it in that perspective, based on how big this One Piece world is. Him giving discomfort to an elder is kind of crucial. But via speculation, what do you think Franky's max blast power is? Do you think his blast could do catastrophic damage to a big chunk of the surface of the moon or something? Maybe not blow up the moon, but shoot a blast that will cover a big radius of the moon if lower tiers from earlier arcs can do it? Something to think about, right? Do you think he can mess up smaller planetoids or meteors? Seems very likely. But it's not much else for me to say, guys. How strong do you think he is? Is Franky the strongest crew member without Haki on the crew of the Straw Hats? Or do you think Robin is the strongest without Haki of the crew? Like, we know Jinbei's like one of the heavier hitters because he has Haki. I bet you people are debating who's stronger between Robin and Franky. Two powerhouses without Haki. Both have defeated beings that technically have Haki, and they've defeated them. Both of them are in the I've defeated a person with Haki club, even though I don't use Haki. Regardless of it, whoever's the first character to get Haki is going to win instantly. Is Oda trying to say Nico, Robin, and Franky are at similar power levels because they both face beings with similar bounties? You know, what do you think about this? I know bounties aren't everything, but it does have something to do with a character's power level or danger level. There's different reasons why certain characters have a high bounty, like Nico Robin's kind of unique. Hers and the early part of the series didn't really have too much to do with her power level, even though she was strong. But like some people, the reason why their bounty is so crazy is because of their crew and a reflection of their combat abilities. You know, that's why I think this is kind of like a slick way of Oda to kind of let us know where the power rankings are. But I want to hear what you guys think. Franky believes you should smash that like button. It would really help out a lot. Respect them. And thanks for the donations, everybody. It really does help out. Franky's crazy. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.